that my hunger and my desire and my fire in the belly, and that nothing could stop me.
I think sometimes if we think about a reset or we want to change our lives, it's overwhelming, right? It's too big.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's Maid saw everything: the fights, the lies, the moments when Maria wasn't home. For 2 decades, she was the most trusted person in their house. But in 2011, she did something that shocked everyone. She dropped to her knees in front of Maria and confessed a secret she'd kept for 14 years. What she said made Maria cry with her instead of firing her. Now that one maid is breaking her silence about what Arnold was really like and the devastating truth she carried alone all those years. Arnold Schwarzenegger's story didn't begin with glamour, fame, or muscles. It started in a small Austrian village called Tal, where he was born on July 30, 1947. Life at home was rough. His father, Gustav, was an abusive police chief and a former Nazi. He ruled the house through fear and violence. Arnold's older brother, Meinhard, was favored while Arnold was mocked and beaten. Gustav even questioned if Arnold was truly his son. His mother, Aurelia, was forced to beg for food, and they all survived on scraps. Arnold later admitted the house was full of tension. It was so bad that he didn't attend his father's funeral in 1972 or his brother's, who died in a drunk driving accident in 1971. These early scars shaped him deeply. They didn't just make him tough, they made him obsessed with power, success, and control. By age 15, he found his escape: weight training. He didn't just like it, he became addicted. Inspired by bodybuilders like Reg Park and Steve Reeves, he joined a gym in Graz. He trained 6 days a week, sometimes sneaking in when the gym was closed. He chalked up every set on the walls, pushing himself harder than anyone else. Most teens had social lives. Arnold had dumbbells and obsession. He trained 3 hours a day, doing up to 20 sets for each body part. Friends warned him it was too much. He didn't care. When told he might ruin his health, he trained even harder just to prove them wrong. Even during his mandatory military service in 1965, he went AWOL just to compete in the Mr. Europe contest, and won. He was arrested and spent a week in military prison, but the message was clear: nothing would stop him. At 20, Arnold became the youngest ever to win the Mr. Universe title. He beat Reg Park, his childhood hero. That win made him cry, but not out of sadness. It was the first big payoff for his relentless drive. Over the next few years, he collected 4 Mr. Universe titles and 7 Mr. Olympia wins. He didn't just win, he crushed competition. From 1965 to 1980, he racked up 19 major bodybuilding victories. When he lost to Frank Zane in 1968, he broke down in tears, but then invited Zane to train with him. It wasn't friendship, it was strategy. He wanted to learn his enemy's secrets. When Arnold made a surprise comeback in 1980 during filming for Conan the Barbarian, he won Mr. Olympia again, sparking outrage. Many thought others deserved the title more, but Arnold didn't care. He knew how to bend the system in his favor. It became his signature move, not just in bodybuilding, but in life. In 1968, Arnold moved to California. He was just 21, but unlike most immigrants, he didn't try to blend in. He kept his thick Austrian accent even when Hollywood agents told him to get rid of it. One producer even gave him the fake name, Arnold Strong, because no one could pronounce Schwarzenegger. But Arnold knew the accent made him unique. It became a tool. He was smart about more than just muscles. He studied business at the University of Wisconsin and graduated with a degree in marketing. He became a U.S. citizen in 1983. Every move was calculated. Even his marriage in 1986 to Maria Shriver, a journalist and member of the Kennedy family, was seen by many as strategic. She brought him credibility, connections, and political weight. Arnold was always thinking 10 steps ahead. His love life, though, showed a different side, one full of secrets. His first long-term relationship in America was with Barbara Outland Baker. They met in 1969 and lived together in Santa Monica for over 3 years. Their first date was watching the Apollo moon landing. It all seemed picture perfect: days at the beach, simple meals, backyard barbecues. But Arnold was cheating behind her back. Barbara found out only after they split up in 1974. Years later, she wrote a memoir revealing everything: how he smoked marijuana, watched porn, and slowly became cold and arrogant. As his fame rose, so did his ego. She said he changed completely, calling him an emotionless, self-centered robot. During his training phases, Arnold himself admitted they were never meant to last. She wanted stability, he wanted greatness. And he was willing to hurt people to get it. In 1982, Arnold Schwarzenegger took the lead role in Conan the Barbarian and transformed into a full-blown action icon. But behind the muscles and swordplay was a man obsessed with control. Relentlessly, and the studio spent $10,000 each on 2 custom-forged swords just for him. He did nearly all his own stunts. Filming lasted 5 months in Spain, and his need for perfection soon became legendary on set. Crew members whispered about how precise, almost rigid he was. This wasn't just about a role, it was about setting a tone for the rest of his career, one where Arnold would call the shots both on screen and in his personal life. Even then, people noticed how he treated everyone around him like staff under command. Just 2 years later, everything exploded. In 1984, The Terminator turned Arnold into a global superstar. He was only supposed to play the human hero, Kyle Reese, but after bonding with director James Cameron, Arnold pitched himself for the villain instead, the cold, unstoppable killing machine. It was a strange move, but it worked. The Terminator was made for just $6.4 million and earned $78.3 million. Audiences couldn't get enough of the emotionless cyborg. Behind that steel glare, though, was a man carefully shaping his own myth. The movie, filmed mostly at night in Los Angeles, squeezed between his obligations for Conan the Destroyer. But Arnold didn't just show up, he sculpted every move, every scene. That robotic, calculated presence became part of his real-world persona too: calm, controlled, and always a few steps ahead. Years before those iconic roles, Arnold had already begun mapping out his future in America. In August 1977, he attended the Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Tennis Tournament. He wasn't a tennis player, he never even held a racket, but he showed up because Eunice Kennedy Shriver invited him, and Arnold knew exactly who her daughter was: Maria Shriver, a 21-year-old journalist from one of the most powerful families in the country. Arnold was 30. He didn't play it cool. When Eunice mentioned Maria liked him, he told her, "Your daughter has a really nice ass." He later admitted, "What a stupid thing to say." But it didn't scare Maria off. That same night, she and her cousin Caroline Kennedy invited him to join them in Hyannisport. That was the beginning of a relationship that wasn't just about romance. It was a calculated entry into the Kennedy dynasty. On April 26, 1986, Arnold married Maria Shriver in Massachusetts. The ceremony was held at St. Francis Xavier Roman Catholic Church, the guest list full of politicians and celebrities. For Arnold, this wasn't just love, it was power. Maria was the daughter of Sergeant Shriver and Eunice Kennedy Shriver, making her JFK's niece. Arnold, a conservative Republican from Austria, was suddenly tied to America's most iconic Democratic family. Even Senator Ted Kennedy joked, "The Kennedy family has its own Big Tent policy." That connection gave Arnold something no other action star had: legitimacy in political circles. It wasn't just talk. When he later decided to run for governor of California, Uncle Teddy was among those who offered advice. They had 4 children together: Catherine, Christina, Patrick, and Christopher, further rooting him in the Kennedy legacy. But that came with tension. Arnold's old-school views often clashed with the progressive ideals of the family he married into. During their 25 years together, Arnold and Maria didn't just build a family, they built an empire. By the time they separated in 2011, they had a combined net worth of $400 million. Arnold had made $300 million of that himself. His journey started small. He took money from bodybuilding wins in his mail-order business and used it to buy a $10,000 apartment building. Then came Hollywood blockbusters, where he made millions per film. He partnered with Stallone, Willis, and Demi Moore in the Planet Hollywood chain. He got into commercial real estate, even co-owning the Easton Town Center Mall in Ohio. He bought a stake in Dimensional Fund Advisors, a major investment firm, and he launched the Arnold Sports Festival in 1989, which grew into one of the biggest fitness events in the world. Mildred Patty Baena wasn't just another housekeeper. She stepped into Arnold Schwarzenegger's home in the early 1990s and, over the next 20 years, became something else entirely. She didn't just clean the house, she was allowed in private areas no other staff could enter. She drove the family car, ran personal errands, and was welcomed into family gatherings. People around her noticed how close she and Arnold were. Some said it was obvious something was going on. Still, Baena stayed part of the family's daily life, always there, always trusted. What no one knew was that this trust would one day shatter everything. Her personal life was already complicated when she started. Working for the Schwarzeneggers, she was married to Rogelio Baena, a businessman from Colombia. They married in 1987, but when Joseph was born in October 1997, Rogelio's name was put on the birth certificate even though they had separated around the same time. The reason? Rogelio had found out about her affair with Arnold. Yet the divorce didn't go through until 2008, and it wasn't finalized legally until 2012. That's 11 years of separation and another 4 years to officially end it all. That time, Baena kept working in the Schwarzenegger home. She told different stories about who Joseph's father was. Some neighbors thought it was her then-partner, Alex Aguiar. It was a lie layered on top of other lies, all to hide one massive truth. Arnold's behavior with staff wasn't just about Baena, it followed a pattern. Former staff said he often crossed the line. He'd make crude comments on movie sets, grope women, and act inappropriately when Maria Shriver wasn't around. One crew member asked out loud, "Why does he think he could get away with it?" But he always did. At home, Maria had her suspicions. She believed Arnold had cheated with multiple staff members. Ironically, she didn't think Baena was one of them. When she did grow suspicious of someone, that staff member usually disappeared from the job shortly after. Behind closed doors, it looked like a system built to protect him and silence others. Baena was in a vulnerable position. She was an immigrant from Guatemala, working a job she couldn't afford to lose. Arnold, on the other hand, was powerful, rich, and famous. He was a movie star and eventually governor of California. That imbalance made it nearly impossible for her to say no. Their affair didn't happen by accident, it happened while Maria and the kids were away. Baena later said it only happened a few times about 14 years earlier, and that she thought she loved him. But those aren't just feelings. That's the emotional trap of being in a relationship where one person holds all the power. Baena wasn't just around during work hours, she went on vacations with the family. She was there for birthdays, holidays, and fights. She saw everything. And even after Joseph was born, Arnold's secret son, she stayed for over 13 years. She helped raise Arnold's legitimate children while also raising the child he had with her. Maria, completely unaware, would often cry to Baena about Arnold's infidelity. And Baena, the woman who had his secret child, would comfort her. She'd say, "This is who Arnold has always been." That's how blurred the lines had become. The woman causing the pain was also trying to ease it. The affair happened in 1996. It wasn't random. Arnold waited until Maria and the children were away. That kind of timing wasn't an accident, it was calculated. He planned it, knowing the house would be empty. Later, he called it the worst thing I've ever done, and said it hurt many people. But it wasn't just a bad decision, it was a betrayal built on planning and opportunity. Baena was trusted, loyal, and always present. That's what made it worse. Arnold Schwarzenegger's life in 1997 was like a Hollywood script, except it was real, and the stakes were heartbreaking. On September 27, he and his wife Maria Shriver welcomed their son Christopher into the world. Just 5 days later, on October 2, his housekeeper Mildred Baena gave birth to another boy, Joseph. Arnold was the father of both. The timeline was brutal. Maria was still healing from childbirth, still celebrating the arrival of her baby, while Arnold already knew he had another newborn with another woman, one who worked inside their own home. And yet he said nothing. That silence would last more than a decade. For 14 years, this shocking truth stayed buried under smiles, parties, photo ops, and interviews about family values. But the clock was ticking. While the world saw Arnold as a family man, he was juggling two realities. In public, he held Christopher, thanked friends for their warm wishes, and played the role of a happy father. Behind the scenes, he was arranging private financial support for Joseph and Mildred. Two babies born the same week, with the same father, but only one acknowledged. Arnold kept smiling for the cameras, doing interviews about parenthood, while living with the quiet fear that one wrong word, one slip, could make the whole thing fall apart. No one suspected the man talking about integrity and discipline had just become a father to two boys with two women within days. But while Arnold was playing a dangerous game in public, Mildred Baena was trapped in a private nightmare. After giving birth to Joseph, she returned to work, taking care of Christopher, the son Maria had just delivered. Every day, she fed, changed, and cared for Arnold's publicly accepted child, while secretly raising his other son in her own home. It was like a slow-moving tragedy. Mildred smiled, helped with family routines, and stayed loyal to her job while watching Maria live out a joy that she could never fully share. The emotional toll of being both caregiver and hidden co-parent would weigh on her for years. She wasn't just hiding a child, she was hiding the truth from a family that trusted her completely. Meanwhile, Arnold didn't just provide for Joseph, he helped support Mildred's entire household, paying for school fees, everyday expenses, and probably using separate accounts so nothing would raise red flags. This wasn't a one-time mistake, it became a secret lifestyle. For 14 years, Arnold ran two families, one in the open, one in the shadows. And as Joseph grew older, Arnold couldn't ignore the truth. His son was growing up in front of him, just not in the same way as his other kids. He saw Joseph's face, his mannerisms, his energy, and it all felt familiar. It was like watching a mirror that he couldn't acknowledge. The guilt built up slowly, day after day, year after year. Joseph would visit the house with Mildred. Arnold would see his son, talk to him like he was just the housekeeper's boy, never able to let out a word of fatherly pride. That silent interaction became emotional torture. As Joseph got older, his features started to echo Arnold's more clearly, his face, his posture, even his way of speaking. It all started to give away the truth. Arnold admitted years later that by the time Joseph was around 7 or 8, the resemblance was so obvious, he could no longer deny it to himself. That's when it all started to shift, from secret to suspicion. Arnold began to panic quietly. He told himself he could handle this the way he always handled things, by shutting down, staying quiet, and keeping control. In an interview years later, he said, "That's the way I handle things. I just keep it to myself." But it was getting harder. He couldn't unsee the similarities, and neither could anyone else. Behind closed doors, he started sending more money to Mildred. Every payment had to be hidden, every visit had to be casual, every word had to be calculated. It was the summer of 2010 when everything started to unravel. 13-year-old Joseph Baena was spending more time than usual at the Schwarzenegger home. He had always been around, but now something was different. People began noticing. The staff whispered behind closed doors. The way Joseph walked, the shape of his jaw, even the way he smiled, it all looked too familiar. He didn't just resemble someone. He resembled Arnold. The resemblance had become undeniable. It wasn't just gossip anymore. Maria Shriver, who had trusted Mildred Baena for 20 years, started hearing it too. The tension in the house grew thick. Everyone could feel it. And though Joseph had been part of the family's world for years, something about him turning 13 made it impossible to ignore. Arnold's sharp Austrian features had clearly passed on. The secret could no longer hide in plain sight. Maria couldn't hold it in any longer. The truth had been circling her like a storm for months. She went straight to Mildred. No games, no soft approach, just one blunt question: was Joseph Arnold's son? That moment shattered everything. Mildred didn't deny it. She didn't argue. She broke down completely. She dropped to her knees right there in the house. She cried uncontrollably, saying, "Yes, he is, and I'm so sorry." She had never told Arnold. For over 13 years, she had carried this truth alone. She had worked in the same house, watched her son grow up around his father, and said nothing. Now the guilt exploded out of her, and Maria stood there stunned, hearing the confession that would change her life forever. But what came next was even more unbelievable. Maria didn't scream. She didn't throw Mildred out. Instead, she knelt beside her. She cried with her. She told her to stand up. She didn't want her on her knees. And when Mildred offered to leave, to pack up and disappear, Maria told her to stay, at least through the holidays. This wasn't some dramatic outburst from a betrayed wife. This was restraint. This was heartbreak handled with shocking grace. Even Mildred didn't expect it. After 2 decades of loyalty, and then betrayal, Maria responded not with revenge but with compassion. They held each other, both crying, both broken. In that moment, it didn't erase the betrayal, but it showed the kind of person Maria really was. Maria didn't just handle the situation with grace, she handled it with strategy. After learning the truth, she waited. She didn't tell Arnold right away. She didn't destroy his career in a fury. She waited until January 4th, 2011. That was the day after Arnold's time as governor officially ended. Then she brought it to the surface, but not in private. She did it in couples therapy. She let the therapist ask the question. There was no escape, no dodging it. Arnold was caught. He later said, "I thought my heart stopped." That's how much it hit him. This wasn't just a family drama. It was a political landmine. But Maria waited until the office was vacated. She protected his legacy even while preparing to walk away. That level of control, that ability to plan even while emotionally torn apart, showed just how powerful Maria really was behind the scenes. What followed was a fallout unlike any other. But Maria continued to protect what mattered. She could have gone to the press, she could have exposed everything while Arnold was still in office and ended his career in one headline. But she didn't. She waited, and when the news became public, she still didn't lash out. She kept things as calm as possible for the sake of their 4 children. Even Joseph, the son born from the betrayal, wasn't cast out. He was welcomed at family events, holidays, birthdays. Maria never spoke badly about him in public, never once used him as a weapon. Arnold himself admitted it. He said if there were Oscars for handling divorce, Maria deserved one. And maybe he was right, because even with her heart shattered, she chose peace, she chose control, she chose to protect the very people who had broken her. The most dramatic moment of all came in that therapy session. Arnold wasn't expecting it. The therapist asked directly, "Did you father a child with your housekeeper?" There was no warning, no build-up, just the truth fired like a bullet. Arnold was blindsided. He couldn't dodge it. And when he heard the words, his body gave out before his mouth did. He felt his heart stop. The man who had stood fearless in front of cameras, crowds, and critics was now cornered in a therapist's office, wrecked by one question. That secret, buried since 1996 when Joseph was conceived during the filming of Batman and Robin, finally exploded. He had hidden it for 15 years, but that day everything collapsed. The lie that had shaped his life, his family, and his career was finally out in the open. And yet, even after all of that, Maria still didn't burn it all down. She walked away from the marriage, yes, but she never destroyed what remained. She preserved the family. She protected the kids. And she even made room for the boy who symbolized her deepest hurt. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver were once seen as the ultimate power couple. Hollywood charm and American royalty rolled into one. But when Maria learned in 2011 that Arnold had fathered a child with their housekeeper, the image shattered overnight. She filed for divorce immediately. What followed wasn't just a breakup, it was a legal marathon that lasted 10 long years. Most celebrity divorces, even the messy ones, wrap up in 2 or 3 years, but theirs dragged until 2021, making it one of the longest in Hollywood history. The reason? A $400 million fortune built over decades. Arnold brought in money from movies and politics. Maria brought in Kennedy family wealth and her own successful career in journalism. Between 2011 and 2021, almost nothing moved forward. People wondered, were they trying to patch things up? Were lawyers stuck dividing assets too complex to untangle? One thing that did make it easier in the end, by 2021, all 4 of their kids, Catherine, Christina, Patrick, and Christopher, were adults. No custody battles. No support payments. Just 2 lives finally pulling apart after years of silence, negotiation, and emotional weight. But in the middle of that chaos, something unexpected began to grow: Arnold's relationship with Joseph Baena, the son born from the affair that had blown up his marriage. At first, their bond was distant. Joseph admitted in 2022 that it took time for things to feel natural between them. "It took a little while for me and him to get really close," he said. What helped was fitness. Arnold guided Joseph through workouts, helped him get into shape, and encouraged him when he felt left out. Joseph had been cut from basketball and soccer teams as a teenager, but under Arnold's guidance, he transformed into a confident, muscular young man who now looks so much like his father that it's impossible to miss. Their connection became more than workouts. Arnold started asking about his son's life, his struggles, his dating life, his future. He's like, "Tell me everything. Tell me about the drama. Tell me about the girls," Joseph recalled in 2024. The two were even spotted biking around Toronto together while Arnold filmed the 2nd season of his Netflix show Fubar. Yet Joseph has always drawn one line: he chose to keep his mother's surname. "That's the last thing on my mind," he said, explaining that he wants to make his own way. He might be close to his father, but he's determined to stay independent. Arnold, on the other hand, has carried the weight of that mistake ever since. In 2023, he opened up like never before in a Netflix documentary titled Arnold at 76, looking back on a lifetime of fame, power, and failure. He didn't sugarcoat it. "I'm going to have to live with it the rest of my life," he said. This was a different Arnold, not the action star who crushed every challenge, not the governor who bulldozed political obstacles. This was a man admitting that some things can't be fixed. The documentary showed how the scandal had affected everything: his marriage, his family, and even his political image. It all unraveled during his 8 years as governor of California. While he was chasing the American dream, he also stumbled into one of its darkest truths: that success doesn't erase consequences. That no matter how strong or famous you are, some damage can't be undone.